Greetings, everybody, and welcome to Publius's Thoughts. This is part 2 of episode 2 on the invasion situation with regards to Ukraine, Russia. Is it time to end and defeat Russia once and for all, and does that happen in 2023? Is it a necessary sacrifice, no matter if you agree or not, is the real question here. This is an opinion piece. I am okay with you agreeing to disagree with it. It doesn't bother me at all. So here we go. I say this in part of someone that attended college as late as 2011. I studied Cold War theory, some very intelligent, respected individuals within the national security apparatus. I'm a 47-year-old male. I remember the days of the Cold War when I had to duck and cover drills over the fears of nuclear weapon exchange with that of our Cold War enemy, Russia. All that we have in our current arsenal is a result of that former Cold War. But what is at stake is Europe and the future of Europe, and that is being decided in Ukraine. It is coming up to almost a year since the war kicked off. Russia's at allegedly 100,000 deaths. If we are to believe those numbers, it is reasonable to further believe that the number of injured is twice that much. And at the beginning of this war, Putin mustered approximately, I think, 200,000, maybe 250,000 troops. And I'm not sure if that's not including support, transportation, and so on, if we are to believe that is how they count their personnel. Yet we know they count working disabled vehicles that are for war as same type of vehicle. So in other words, a truck can be counted as a tank, working or not, which is insane and frankly rather odd for any modern military or military of the past to count such things. There are many on the right that have criticized this war. I felt that way in the beginning as well. Why? Because what I learned in my Cold War classes was the fear what and how powerful Russia's military was, militarily. But that perspective has changed dramatically in my perspective. I no longer share the opinion that the U.S. and NATO allies being a part of this war. I might disagree with President Biden on many domestically or otherwise issues. However, I agree with his stance on this war. Ukraine is the shield to defending against Russia's attempt at taking through unconventional means of a sovereign nation that is Ukraine. There are many legitimate concerns in part to the amount of money that is being sent overseas as a result, and I understand and I acknowledge that. However, when looking at Ukraine and the amount of money, equipment, training, paying their soldiers to trainers in the field, it takes a lot to get an army up to speed, as NATO has already done the groundwork shortly after 2014 invasion of Crimea. However, Europe and NATO under former President Obama and former President Trump both were instrumental in preparing the Ukrainian army. Now we are just getting many up to speed on other systems, to training abled men of all ages and cranking out a disciplined military. It seems to be acting within international norms, unlike Russia that are committing international crimes on the battlefield and the laws of war. Yes, you might be going, laws of war? Since when is there ever laws of war? There's always been laws of war. We know why they are doing this. They don't want to be respected to enter. The reason why Ukraine is doing this, they want to be respected to enter the EU bloc, to even being a member of NATO. You can't commit war crimes. You have to act within Western military doctrine, even NATO doctrine, which is Western doctrine of military, which Ukraine is doing, and all indications are showing that. Are there soldiers that will act otherwise? Of course. It happens in all conflicts, and all nations, including the U.S. and its NATO allies, as it happened in Iraq and Afghanistan. But the difference is those individuals would be held accountable. There are concerns with many within the international community to NATO, Republicans, Democrats about the potential corruption by Ukraine, which is a relevant question and concern, which I have brought up. However, many former Soviet-era nations that are currently EU, NATO members were once corrupt and had to make hard decisions to change those ways. No doubt Ukraine is no different. However, this war will force that change faster than was possible before, which is not a bad thing. Now, we know that there is potential money laundering, of course. I had heard the same things in Iraq and Afghanistan when I was there. However, I never witnessed it, so I can't say it happened, but I'm sure it did, as we heard about it, read about stories, and so on and so forth. The Ukrainian army is having many successes on the battlefield. That is a certain fact. No matter the amount of propaganda from either side, it happens in all wars. But Russia has been shown to be nothing more than an irresponsible nation in the mistreatment of its own military, soldiers, and downright just wrong on so many levels. From conscripting prisoners of all shapes and forms, and no matter their legal definition or crime, to the Wagner group of just mercenaries that, and so on and so forth, because they simply don't have enough people to muster, and all they're doing is conscripting people off the street. They're just grabbing them. Russia has not only done wrong unto itself and becoming an international partner among nations of the world, but has endangered itself, alienating those nations it is partnered with. However, that of the usual suspected nations are backing Russia, of Iran, North Korea, and others that seem forced or are current satellite-controlled nations, with a very reluctant China that seems to be backing off as well, which I suspect is watching with both fear and surprise at the multiple failures of its own military that is reflected upon the same failures that we see in Russia today. In many ways, I am old enough to remember the end of the Cold War, the fall of the Berlin Wall, to Russia rising within the international order, become an energy powerhouse onto itself and its own, to pursuing global integration that has all been thrown out the window over this invasion that was not necessary. I suspect that Putin thought it would have been an easy take. However, we are here almost 11 months later. Russia's military is in no position to do anything, and all Russia can do is destroy the infrastructure of Ukraine while emboldening its population. In recent weeks, we have heard from the likes of Henry Kissinger, the architect of many of the ill-fated early 20th century world order, and forced into positions the West has had to take as a result of his ideology of those events. Now he's at it again at 99 years old, attempting to make claim that Ukraine should appease Putin, give him what he wants. That is not diplomacy. That is surrendering of rightful territory and giving it into a thug. That is not winning this war. This is just more the old Cold War thinking of a person that is on death's doorsteps. The world gave Russia ample opportunities, and this is the way it acts. Yes, its own interest and an ego trip of one man that wants to leave a legacy. What that legacy will be, the spoils of the treasury, international partnerships, and setting Russia back decades, even a second fall of Russia because of what has been evident on the battlefield of its military, and that was once feared is nothing more than a paper tiger with nuclear weapons. At this point, much of the past policies of appeasement has not worked with Russia, nor should it be entertained. There can be no way back to pre-war situation. Instead, it needs to be and see the Western leaders see to it that Russia is once and for all destroyed morally, militarily, and with it a tough and forced to the table. In the way in which Germany was to Japan was and has become better nation states and responsible nation states 70 years later. But Russia is another beast all unto itself, and I'm not sure if that is achievable in the same way or partially. I'm not sure if forcing Russia or putting them in this situation to accept nothing less than surrender, forced dismantling of its military, forced to pay reparations to Ukraine, and full withdrawal to pre-2014 lines and territory. But this creates a lot of challenges. I don't see Western powers up to doing at the moment, and Ukraine looks as if it is in this for the long haul. If peace could be achieved and Ukraine is victorious against Russia, it would bring with it prosperity, sustainable peace is hoped, and opportunity of rebuilding the nation of Ukraine. Currently is already being looked at in terms of a Marshall Plan in rebuilding, but with it comes with it of displaced families, including taken and forced in relocation of Ukrainian citizens, children of all ages, and more. It would further require the EU, military, NATO, and other nations, perhaps even the UN, the United Nations, to come in and help stabilize Ukraine and provide further security to so many dangers of what is left behind in war and the scars that will remain for decades. But what will rise from it will be a partner that is a part of the European Union and a prosperous nation among Western allies and its military. In 2023, and as we enter the new year, Russia will need to be forced into being dismantled due to its recent actions against the Western world, once again dragging the nations of the world back into a forgotten era of imperial aggression. That is frankly unacceptable. Russia, I believe, will be dismantled or forced into a second collapse in my lifetime. Securing defeat against Russia should be priority number one of the international community and the New World Order within 2023. So I'm going to wrap it up here. This is my second part of part one. How could Western allies or Western nations get Russia's military prowess so wrong in so many different ways? I thank you for listening. If you have any thoughts or ideas, drop them down below. Take care, everybody. Peace out. Bye.